Well, I always called her hun, but she calls me 1001. See, Penicillin Penny likes to boogie when the day is done.
Atop the battlements of Castle Curmudgeon, where you can lead a wokester to soy milk, but you can't give him a cardboard straw. Good evening, Mr. and Mrs. America, and all ships at sea. Welcome to the Blast Radio. So glad to have you with us this evening. Here is your Decline of Western Civilization news roundup for the work week ending 9 August 2024. Dateline, Washington, Monday, 5 August. A full 3 weeks after the palace coup in which she was installed as the presumptive Democrat nominee, Vice President the California Cackler, in addition to exercising the bold and very novel strategy of being a presidential candidate who assiduously avoids interviews and press conferences and really any scenario where she says words into a live microphone that aren't being read off of a prompter screen, is also shaking things up by having still 0 policy positions listed on her official campaign website. There's an About Kamala tab. There's a link for if you want to donate money, naturally. There's a link to the merch store, obviously. But if, say you're an undecided swing state voter who wants to know the policy positions of the Democrat Party presidential nominee, well, I'm afraid you're just shit out of luck on that score. You shouldn't be so hung up on the details anyway, goddammit. This is not a policy election. This is an election where you vote for the beautiful black Nubian goddess. Or the beautiful Punjabi Indian goddess, depending on who the audience is. And you don't do it because you agree with her policies. You don't do it because you want a better life for yourself and your children. You do it because she is not a white dude and the other guy is. Nothing about this is freaking rocket surgery. Remember in 2008 when you voted for Barack Obama because they said you'd be racist if you didn't? And remember when you voted for him again in 2012 with the full knowledge that he was a pretty terrible president? Because they said only a racist country would throw a mulatto president out of office just for sucking at his job? Well, we just need you to do that one more time. You know, we couldn't be making this appeal up until a few weeks ago when our candidate was not just a crusty old white man, but the honest-to-God last living segregationist senator, but now we can make it. And you bet your sweet ass we are going to lean into that thing good and hard. Do you really need to see any policy positions when your choice is between being a racist and not being one? Yeah, that's what I thought. I hope this little talk has helped. Dateline Pasadena, Tuesday, 6 August. Well, last week we talked, though perhaps at not sufficient length, about the cucktastic exercise in inadvertent self-mockery that was White Dudes for Kamala, in which a cavalcade of obese, feminized, middle-aged former celebrities took turns telling stories about how hard they wept when Hillary didn't win in 2016. And would you believe this week we have managed to locate a group of people with even less self-respect than those guys? Well, yeah, of course you'd believe it, because there's no possible way that would not happen. So who's up this week? Well, you guessed it. It's Childless Cat Ladies for Kamala. Joel Pollack of Breitbart News reports that this week at something called CatCon in Pasadena, which evidently is some sort of annual Woodstock for sad, lonely spinster ladies who prefer feline companionship to the humankind, some attendees showed up wearing Childless Cat Ladies for Kamala t-shirts and expressing their fervent displeasure with Republican vice presidential nominee Senator J.D. Vance for his pretty well-reasoned and fairly highly accurate characterization of their community. And I feel like I can't be the only one who saw the irony in all that. Where J.D. Vance said a thing about childless cat ladies, and all the childless cat ladies responded by acting exactly like childless cat ladies, playing up to the stereotype like it's going out of style. I think Nicole Wallace actually came close to coughing up a hairball live on the air. Remember Angela from The Office? Remember the Office episode where she went home and licked her cats and everybody watched her do it on the nanny cam? I bet Nicole Wallace goes home each night and licks her 14 cats. Fake controversy. What did J.D. Vance say that was really so uproariously controversial? In a nutshell, he said we shouldn't be investing the decisions regarding the future of our society to a leadership class that is increasingly made who are not direct stakeholders in either the country's past or its future. And yeah, if I'm Kamala Harris, that probably hits a little bit too close to home for comfort because it describes her to a T. And we have sure as shit never had a major party presidential nominee with 0 American ancestors and 0 American children. If she wants to be seen as a historic and unprecedented type of candidate, then let's talk about all the ways in which she is historic and unprecedented, shall we? Rather than just the ones that she would prefer to talk about. Dateline Washington, Wednesday, 7 August. In this week's installment of our ongoing series entitled, No, You Don't Hate the Media Enough, and They Really Are Fake News, NPR issued a report this week because, of course, it had to be NPR, saying, while trying very admirably to keep a straight face about the whole thing, that Democrats across the fruited plain are embracing and making into a badge of honor the Tampon Tim sobriquet that has been bestowed by the internet upon Governor Tim Walz, and not without good reason, since he is, in point of fact, the only governor in U.S. history who has signed his name to a legislative act mandating feminine hygiene products in the elementary school boys' room. Because Tim Walz is a man who has got his priorities straight, goddammit, and he wants everybody to understand that nothing says feminism like a dude sticking a tampon up his ass. Or, as the case may be, a dude punching a lady in the face, which reminds me of a couple things. Number one, the Olympics are still going on, but I think they're mercifully close to being over. But for those of us who don't have TV and wouldn't be watching the thing even if we did, it's difficult to keep track sometimes. And number two, yes, I know it's going to come as a shock, but the big hulking dude from Algeria did, in fact, win the gold medal in the freestyle domestic violence event. Imagine that. A dude enters a punching contest against a bunch of ladies, and the dude winds up winning. What'll they think of next? Now, after NPR put out this ridiculous piece about Tampon Tim being a badge of honor that any man should be more than proud to wear, you can probably guess what happened next. That's right, every wacky wokester in the whole Twitterverse decided to pile on and not just endorse NPR's thesis, but double down on it in some ways that, Christ, let's just say people who were born with one shred of self-awareness would never, in total seriousness, type these words and blast them out to the whole planet. And the one who outdid all the others, in the opinion of this reporter, was someone named Monica Hess, who apparently works at the Washington Post. I know. I'm as surprised as you are. Whoever would have guessed that it would be WAPO? Here's what Monica tweeted. And I need to preface this by saying I'm not making this up for satirical purposes. This is 100% real from an actual professional journalismer. Quote, since hashtag Tampon Tim is trending, I'll point out that in high school, any boy who casually was like, oh, you got your period? I stashed a pad from the bathroom in my backpack in case one of my friends needed it. That boy would be king stud. That boy would be drowning in prom invites. End quote. And I'm not going to comment any further on that one. It deserves to stand as a monument to itself, I think. Don't you? Dateline Mar-a-Lago, Thursday, 8 August. Former President Donald Trump called things exactly what they are this week, as he often does, when he said, in reference to Kamala Harris's reticence to speak extemporaneously into a live microphone, quote, you know why she's not doing it? Because she can't do a news conference. She doesn't know how to do a news conference. She's not smart enough to do a news conference, end quote. And he is not wrong about any of those things. For those fans who are keeping score at home, I believe it's 21 days now, 3 full weeks in other words, since Mrs. Emhoff was anointed Biden's successor, and the closest she has come to doing an interview or a press conference was to say that she hopes to schedule an interview by the end of the month. Not actually do an interview, mind you, but schedule one. In the first week of August, she said this. And if you're still not quite understanding the need for this total media blackout that is even more severe and pervasive than the one they had in place for the half-dead dementia patient, let's take a trip down memory lane to the one time Kamala Harris gave unscripted remarks in these last 3 weeks, which was at the airport when the hostages came home after that cited deal those idiots cut with the Russians. You want soaring rhetoric? You are not ready for my girl Kamala. Quote, this is just an extraordinary testament to the importance of having a president who understands the power of diplomacy and understands the strength that rests in understanding the significance of diplomacy. End quote. Now, if that doesn't sound like a person with her finger on the pulse of all the many intricacies of geopolitical brinkmanship, I don't know what the hell does. Or should I say, brinkwomanship? Dateline Londonistan, Friday, 9 August. British Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer still struggling to assert control after more than a week of rioting, counter-rioting, and counter-rioting that have accompanied a knife massacre at a children's dance class in which 3 little girls were slaughtered, says he is going to do everything in his power to make sure no more little kids get murdered by African migrants. No, I'm just kidding. Of course he didn't say that. That would be a sensible thing to say. And these are crazy people. Batshit crazy, in fact. Because occasionally, from time to time, one finds oneself confronted with the reality that, shit, I think the rioters and the government are... No, while you might expect a nation's prime minister to come out against murder in the wake of a mass murder, that's not good enough for our man Sir Keir. Oh, no. So what's he going to do? Increase the police budget? Why, yes, as a matter of fact, he is. In fact, he is going to create a brand new, shiny national police force that sends a SWAT team to your nan's nursing home if she makes a racially insensitive social media post. The Stormtroopers, you might call them. The Gestarmpo. Christ, I could do that all day. A sane leader might say, we won't tolerate children being murdered. What does this guy say? We won't tolerate Islamophobia and online hate. And I just saw last night, maybe you saw it too, where some loony Labor MP actually threatened that he was going to have Americans extradited and jailed for violating dumb British Orwellian speech codes. And am I the only one who feels like Orwellian doesn't go far enough anymore? I feel like we need a new adjective. I feel like if Orwell was here with us today, he'd say, this is freaking bonkers, chaps. I never saw anything like this. What kind of freak do I look like? And like a wise man once said, I think that's just about all I've got to say about that. But you know what? I think as a general rule, every week on this program forevermore, we should endeavor to always conduct ourselves in such a manner that would get Sir Keir Starmer's knickers in a twist and make him want to throw us into the Old Bailey. You know, they've actually got a law on the books over there that makes a crime out of something called intentionally stirring up racial hate. Like, that is the actual wording of the statute. I am not making that up, which is impressive because that's multi-level thought crime right there. You have to prove the perpetrator intended to cause unapproved thoughts in the mind of some hypothetical person or people somewhere, and that the unapproved thoughts actually happened in the mind of some presumably real individual. Like I said, Orwell would look at that and he would say, I got nothing. You are the cradle of free speech and liberal democracy. England, don't you ever change. That would make Lavrenti Beria freaking blush. All right, it's time for me to stop bloviating now and lateral the ball to the fleet-footed tailback who's going to take it 80 yards to the house, provided he doesn't fall victim to the dreaded beard tackle. My distinguished colleague, your illustrious co-host, he won the hominid triathlon at the Paris Olympics and didn't even vomit from all the poop water. The one and only, your friend and mine, Mr. Caucasian Sasquatch.
I've ruined everything because I'm in the wrong place.
Tactical nuke incoming!
I didn't do the thing. It didn't do it. Everything's clicky tonight. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Blast Radius, where every now and then we actually do something right. Swear to God, just stick around. You'll see one happen eventually. So tonight we have Tulsi Gabbard on a flight watch list. Apparently, anytime she goes through an American airport, possibly internationally, she gets followed around by sky marshals because somebody in the federales said so. For no other reason. We're going to go into that and a few other things. Hey, Jay.
What's good, y'all? What's good?
Oh, Jay.
Opening statements you want to do?
Opening statements, yeah. So after the events of Tuesday, I can definitely say I have a new perspective on the left and liberals in general. After being at the rally in Philadelphia, I can tell you right now, these are people who truly believe what they're saying. And I don't just mean like they believe it. I mean, they believe it fanatically. They truly believe that Trump is evil. They truly believe that Kamala's the savior. To the point that when I moved to another section that was directly facing the podium where Kamala Harris was going to be at, I was bookended by people who were around my age or younger. Two of which happened to be from the ABC community, who truly believed that Tim Walz looked just like Joseph Biden, and that they were going to be able to get enough voters who were middle-aged white men, because Tim Walz himself is a older-aged white man who likes to hunt. On the other side was a black woman who happened to be a newly single mother, who was literally crying when Tim Walz was giving his speech because she believed that finally the Democrats had the upper hand that they needed in order to leech more votes from Donald Trump. Needless to say that people around my age group, so you could say between the 36 to 22 age bracket, are truly brainwashed if you are on the left. I couldn't believe it myself. Second, I want to talk about what's going on in Ukraine. The fact of the matter is, over the course of the past few weeks, that there have been more advances now than any other time in the war outside of the initial invasion. The fact is that you are literally watching your tax dollars get pissed away, even more so for an invasion that is beginning to reach the beginning stages of an end game. Why do you ask? When Ukraine gets desperate enough to start launching Battle of the Bulge style attacks into Russia, knowing that they're not going to be able to get any viable objectives, knowing they're not going to be able to take any resources or use this as a bargaining chip, you realize it's an act of desperation, and it only accelerates a problem that can get us closer and closer into World War III. Not to mention with the assassination of Ismail Haniyeh in Tehran, Iran, just a couple days ago, that also exacerbates the issue of the fact that Iran has told the Russian state media to have all flights going in and out of Israel to cancel from the 9th, which is this past Friday, until the 16th, this coming Friday. Needless to say, if an event like that is to happen, you will undoubtedly see U.S. forces, possibly even boots on the ground, in Tehran this year. As I've mentioned beforehand, the United States will be at war in Asia before this century is over, but it's not going to be China first. It will likely be Iran. Speaking of China, if we end up having a conflict with Iran, which seems more and more likely by the day if Iran decides to retaliate, chances are you'll also see a conflict in Taiwan brew up, where the United States will be spread so thin between their proxy war in Ukraine, a possible actual war in Iran, that by the time that China does decide to launch an invasion in the South China Sea against Taiwan and possibly the Philippines, multiple members of CETO, then you will see the United States possibly stretched so thin that they won't be able to cover every single one of the fronts, and will inevitably have to give one of those up. Lastly, but not leastly, I want to talk about the situation that's going on in Dalton. Now, I missed the chance to be able to speak about this because I looked on their website and turns out that they had incorrect information. In Dalton, the town that's in Chicago, Tiffany Henyard had a report that came out from Lori Lightfoot in regards to her credit card spending, which went to the tune of $3.65 million. Since that report came out in a special town meeting that Lori Lightfoot held herself in Chicago, Tiffany Henyard has been nowhere to be found. In fact, multiple news sources that were local have went to her office, several of her offices actually, where she's both mayor and supervisor, have contacted her directly and have heard nothing. So it seems to say that corruption not only is happening abroad that involves the United States, but it's also happening on the smaller level and the local levels. Sasquatch, I pass it off to you.
All right, bud. That was absolutely fantastic. Most amazing part of the program so far. So,
Yep.
we got a few choices of a few topics. Where do we go first? I kind of want to talk about this Henyard bit because I've been looking into some of that. I've got a video over here about that, I think. Let me check and make sure they got it right. Oh, no.
Trust me, bro. I'm telling you, the videos I've seen, if you look at the reactions of the people, Lori Lightfoot even tells the crowd, she even tells the people who were there at the special meeting, you guys are reacting this way. We reacted the exact same way when we first saw this. In fact, I think I have a video too. If you don't have it, I have one in queue if you want. It's up to you.
And that's pretty impressive when you can make Lori Lightfoot be amazed at your corruption.
Bro, honestly, I was shocked by it. When she said that, I was truly stunned. Don't worry, Sasquatch. If you don't have the video, I'm about to pull it up right now. I'm about to share it with everybody. Give me 1 second. Oh, wait. Do I have it? Oh, no. That's why. It's on a, I know where I shared it. Okay.
All right.
Never mind.
So
You got it?
I've got the one I was after. We've been following this by way of the actual Justice Warriors account on this. Now, I personally, before we get too far down the end of the weeds, I personally started following the Henyard story back when she was initially elected because, like, I don't know, like 8 months, a year before she was elected, she was arrested for breaking into her own car in a parking lot. I believe the car was being repoed, but I can't verify that. That's just some of the stories I heard going around about that arrest. So that is an alleged kind of thing, but she broke into her own car, was arrested for it, convicted for it, pled guilty for it, as I understand, and then was elected mayor and then city comptroller or whatever it is of Dalton.
Supervisor. City supervisor.
Yeah, so she became super mayor.
I believe it. That's a story that's got super mayor energy as far as I'm concerned.
Right? So from the very beginning, I was over here screaming. Have y'all seen what this chick is doing? She's got the Joker beat on being absolutely outlandish, man. She's a WWE villain. she's amazing. Like, look at this. And I'm going to turn Barney onto it. Midlife Bro Logic.
It's true. She is more. I think you just nailed it when you said she is a pro wrestling character, because that's exactly the sort of aura that she tries to affect, far more so than the aura of an elected official. It's really kind of amazing.
Right. So the most recent thing that's come out is, what was it? A $64,000 in one day done by a individual from apparently the Dalton Police Department.
No. So what you're referring to is the overtime that was paid out to the Dalton police chief. He had $96,000 of overtime. That's not even the worst of it, though. So two of the officers who are part of her personal detail, because keep in mind, she treats the Dalton Police Department as if they're her personal secret service. One of them had $108,000, and the other one had $114,000 in overtime alone. That's just OT. That's not even base salary. That means these guys were pushing up to $200K a year for their base salaries. That was insane. Not to mention the $96K that the police chief received.
Yeah, as I recall, they were turning in a bunch of weeks where they had every single calendar week.
Oh, it gets worse than that, dude.
It is being worked.
Tiffany Henyard was found apparently.
Nothing suspicious there.
$40,000. They found $40,000 of Amazon expenses that cannot be accounted for. $40,000 charged onto a card. They have no idea where that money is.
There's a bunch of shenanigans going on over there.
And she was
I have a video,
taking
by the way, Sasquatch. I have a video in case you'd like me to show it.
backstage, or you can share it as a screen. I'm going to let the actual Justice Warrior do a little bit of justice to this because it's absolutely absurd, and I love his take on it.
Loyal viewers of this channel, my name is Sean, and right now, as I speak, the local news segment talking about the super mayor going missing after the Lightfoot report has dropped is number 7 trending on YouTube. Number 7 on the platform of YouTube. Think about that. When Nate the Lawyer, Hannibal is Hungry, myself, and a few other
That's
YouTubers
impressive.
started covering this story, and it was a niche tale that we were bringing to you for the first time. Did you ever think that this would reach national
just
proportions?
happened?
Did you ever
I see.
think that the FBI, the state of Illinois, Lori Lightfoot running an independent third-party investigation would be what happened? Well, all of that has come to fruition, and now the super mayor is nowhere to be found. She is gone with the wind, and we got to talk about it. But before we get into that, I want to thank everybody who supports this channel and made
And
this
this is where
story
we
a
get our
trending
blurb.
story via actualjusticewarrior.com/join.
Give me the money. Give me the money. Okay.
'Cause
So
I love
recently
that
with
line.
friend of the channel, Al Benny, who will be linked in the description if you want to go subscribe to him. He's the one who makes those awesome TYT mashups. We did a live stream on the Dalton meeting where they actually revealed some of the mismanagement, just a slice from the preliminary report that the super mayor, Tiffany A. Henyard, has been engaged in her position as the mayor of the village of Dalton. Now, it is very important for everybody out there in the audience to understand that Tiffany Henyard is the person who is in charge of the Thornton Township as well. She is the head of the board of supervisors over there. All the same mismanagement and maybe worse mismanagement has gone on there. So this only addresses the village of Dalton. It only addresses what they have access to right now in this moment. And we
Right.
don't even have the individual receipts for certain things that were spent on it.
That's a thing. That's totally a thing. Hold on. No way she went missing. She's totally
So-
missing. She's gone.
She's missing now. Whether or not she's missing, as in fled the country missing, I don't know if it's to that extent. So this actually is from CBS News Chicago. They did the investigation. They were the ones who actually went knocking at her office in person after they tried to send communiques to her office for interview and hearing nothing. So I'll let the video speak for itself.
Being
But that's
Good for them.
That
$1 billion in the hole. Mayor Tiffany Henyard is accused of misusing money, and today she's nowhere to be found.
Tara Molina spent the day in Dalton following the investigation into Henyard's spending. Tara?
Jim and Marie, former Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot is the special investigator in this case. And like we first told you last night, not only did she find the village of Dalton is in significant debt, but she also found the village's credit card spending is out of control. Mayor Tiffany Henyard didn't respond to any of my requests today, and I'm told she's not in the building. No response to repeated interview requests. I tried to track down Dalton Mayor Tiffany Henyard in person today. Village employees told me she wasn't in the office and didn't say when she would be, a day after.
Notice how she went to 2 different offices. She went to 2 separate offices to look for this woman.
This.
on a workday.
A packed community meeting Thursday night, outburst after outburst. Following special investigator Lori Lightfoot's limited examination of Dalton's finances. Her report revealing as of May 31st, the village's general fund had a negative balance of $3.65 million. Lightfoot originally hired by trustees concerned about spending, like self-promoting taxpayer-funded billboards, ads, plus spending on lavish dinners and trips.
Why are we going to these places? What's happening here?
Dalton trustee Brittany Norwood sat down with the CBS News Chicago investigators in February, telling us then trustees were denied requested bank statements.
You're having the same reaction that we did when we saw her.
With credit card spending out of control.
Receipts for credit card purchases are rarely provided.
Lightfoot further
Pause.
uncovering spending that doesn't add up. The report shows $40,000.
You wanted to pause it?
Yes.
Yep, go ahead.
All right. So the amount of just raw, unadulterated embezzlement that has taken place explains an awful lot of the thuggery that's been going on in the town. I had a conversation with another channel one night where he was trying to be pro Tiffany Henyard and trying to explain all of this stuff. And there is one individual that it sticks in my craw head to deal with this woman. He runs a bar that has been a bar ever since it was once back in the day a candy store, right? And they kept the candy shop or the candy store, the candy place, something like that was the name. But now, 20 years later, it's actually like right down the road from the airport and in kind of a shady sort of area. They, as I understand it, they had a alcohol license and a business license all the way up until Tiffany Henyard became mayor. And as soon as she became mayor, the first year he donated to the Tiffany Henyard Fund and he got his liquor license, but not his business license. The second year he didn't donate enough. It was the story that he
here it comes.
Liquor license pulled, and the next thing you know, they're raiding the place when you're supposed to get like 6 months to work out any licensing problems when you're an extant business that is operating and has been operating legally. You're supposed to get an amount of time to deal with any legal swangles that take place. Instead, her entire security detail showed up and ran everybody in on the basis of it being a public nuisance. A bar that's been a bar for a long time.
Yep.
Is suddenly a public nuisance when they don't give her enough money. And that's where I kind of got involved with
it. Is the oldest trick in the corrupt local politician book.
Mm-hmm.
If you want the permits you need in order to stay in business, you're gonna have to pay our protection fee or our extortion fee or our whatever the hell you want to call it. But if you don't pay it, then we're gonna make your life a living hell. So welcome to my regime.
Understand, this is beyond just blatant embezzlement. This is straight up blatant corruption. The town council literally changed the laws, and I went on this on stream actually. You can, and anyone can look it up on Wiki if they like, but the special counsel, along with her, the board of trustees, along with herself, changed the rules that once they end up leaving their seats, or if they're ever elected out, anyone who backfills their positions get a 90% pay cut once they take their office for the duration of the time that they're in office.
Yeah.
Yes, they changed.
Yes, I did hear about that.
The laws. They
Man, you want to talk about brazenness? That is freaking brazenness, right?
They literally changed the laws to manipulate potential candidates or potential rivals from being able to challenge them whenever the election cycle pops up. It's absolutely insane.
Patriot.
That's like comic book corruption. That's the kind of shit that shouldn't even happen in real life.
You know what this reminds me of? And it's just on its surface with how corrupt they're. Tammany Hall. The Tammany Hall administration would be proud of Tiffany Henyard.
Oh, yeah.
You know it. You know they would be. Anyways, let's finish out the rest of this video.
Go ahead.
Spent on Amazon purchases in one day. Money that's unaccounted for.
These are somebody using one of the credit cards.
Another question lingering here. Money spent on police overtime, with 2 officers racking up 6 figures in pure OT, $108,000 and $114,000. The deputy chief, just fired here last week, Lewis Lacey, paid $96,000 in overtime.
The village has been unable to pay all of its monthly expenditures with available cash balance.
I reached all of the village's trustees in reporting this story today. As of right now, I have not heard back from one of them. Of course, we also haven't heard back from Mayor Tiffany Henyard. If any of that changes, we'll update the story that's up on our website right now, where you can find all of our coverage of these issues here in Dolton. Reporting live in Dolton this afternoon, I'm Tara Molina, CBS News, Chicago. Tara, thank you.
Amazing. Absolutely amazing.
We know
Beyond
about that
investment,
Lacey guy. We've seen him before. So he was getting paid almost 100 large a year, and he was spending most of his days just running around intimidating people on behalf of the super mayor.
Allegedly.
Well, not just her, or not just
Allegedly.
him rather, but guess what? It would also be his closest entourage or his closest officers. You keep in mind only the officers who are closest to.
Oh yeah, it's
tenured,
yep.
and those who are with the program are going to be.
Everybody wants a spot on that goon squad.
That's what I'm saying. All of them who are within the inner circle within Tiffany Henyard's detail are the only ones who are going to be getting that overtime cut.
Right.
And honestly, that's just two officers that they mentioned. That's just two officers they mentioned, and the deputy chief. Go ahead.
Also, you got to consider, as long as the check clears. That's been my motto most of my life. When it comes to a job, I look at the situation to determine the likelihood that that check's going to clear. Once it does, the job gets done. So I'm sure some thugs have a work ethic too.
Absolutely insane, dude. Absolutely insane. One other thing
They do all their business in stacks of cash, like Fannie Willis.
Right.
So unless you guys are really hard up, what are you about to play right now, dude? Sasquatch, you about to play something?
I've got the Tulsi Gabbard bit at some point, but it's not timed in at a specific point. What you got?
Well, I was going to say I wanted to bring up something interesting I saw when I covered the Harris rally last night. The Harris rally she had in Las Vegas. We don't have to go into this too deeply, but I do want to bring up some points.
Oh,
so as you guys know, yes, I wanted to bring this up actually. I wanted to bring this up because I covered it and noticed it in real time, and I brought it up, in fact, to a very well-known detractor. Let's go to Kaleidoscope. A very well-known detractor on my channel, who you also know, Sasquatch. You see him from time to time. He never camps up. But something interesting I noticed when I was watching her rally was when she brought up her policies, in particular, one policy of no taxes on tips. In fact, when I noticed it, I literally stopped in the middle of the stream and I was like, huh, that's interesting.
Oh, yeah.
I've never heard that before in the entirety. And granted, the only
stealing policies from the bad orange man now.
The only one of her rallies I didn't cover was her Atlanta rally. That was because I missed it by chance. Since then, I backtracked and covered her Milwaukee speech. I covered her rally obviously in Philly. I covered her rally in Detroit. I covered her rally in Las Vegas. And Las Vegas, and I even went and rewatched the rally she had, or her speech in Atlanta. And I never heard anything about no taxes on tips. Now, how do I know that I'm not mistaken about this, even though this particular individual who claims to be center left, except is very left, made it a point to defend this? Well, I went to several news sources, CNN, MSNBC, and the article I have pulled up already, NBC, have all notated that she literally, and I quote, and this is from NBC, Vice President Kamala Harris pledged Saturday to eliminate taxes on tipped wages for service, matching a proposal from former President Donald Trump. Turns out now we're even policy biting. Who'da thunk it? Who'da thunk it?
It's on the Chiron down here. That's one of the things.
Yes, and also on that note, I mean, you'll notice also that they've just in the last couple days, some of her surrogates have started saying, well, no, she doesn't need to do interviews and press conferences because she's doing these big, huge rallies. Have you seen how big these rallies are? And I just want to pump the brakes for a second and say that, wait, aren't these all the same people who have been telling us for nearly a decade now, ever since Trump entered political life, that his love of huge rallies is a sure sign of his authoritarian fascist leanings, and now they're just pulling that line. Just no self-awareness at all, not a single shred of it, and it's so delicious. I love it. I can't get enough of it.
Eventually, you're going to get to the point where Trump's not even going to make any points whatsoever. He's not going to have to do any more talking points or have any more policies. He can just basically talk on stage, BS, and be like, guys, you don't have to worry about me saying any of my policies. I'm sure Kamala will say in one of her rallies. I'm just going to take all of her policies and apply them to mine.
That's good. That's pretty good, dude. I can't do that. I'm so proud of you.
Listen, that's all he's going to have to do at this point. One other thing I do find interesting is a poll that I noticed when I was watching. Go ahead, Cap. Go ahead, Cap.
No, you go ahead.
One other thing I found interesting was when I watched. I was watching
No,
CNN when I was at the gym on Friday,
ahead.
and I saw that there was a poll that they brought up from CNN. Actually, not the poll from CNN, but a poll from Fox News when they interviewed RFK. Apparently, RFK does in fact recognize that he's leeching 5.5 worth of points from Donald Trump just from being an independent candidate in this race, and that half of that 5.5 would vote for Kamala Harris if he were to drop out. And he's still not considering either dropping out or endorsing Trump, even though he acknowledged during this interview on Fox News that it's because of Trump he got his security detail. I find that interesting. You would think that RFK would think to throw Trump an oop, throw him a bone at least for the fact that he showed him some love. But guess it's not reciprocal. Go ahead, Cap.
Well, it is no end of fascinating to me that the Overton window is such a strange and many splendored thing at this point that RFK Jr., who's the best way to categorize him is probably still as a traditional liberal. He probably has more ideologically in common with Trump, the Republican candidate, this year than he does with his own party's candidate, because they're just completely out to lunch off the leftist reservation now. So anybody like RFK, who is still trying their best to be a middle of the road Democrat, even with all the wackiness that sometimes entails, they find themselves out on an island somewhere, almost more of an ideological bedfellow with the bad orange man than with their own party.
I really wish I could find. Go ahead, Sasquatch. Go ahead.
There's not a single thing that this administration is attempting to run on. First of all, their nominee was never nominated, was never voted for. How many votes has she actually been through? Cap, we went over it last week. It was one actual election and then some stuff in the Senate. Right?
Yep. When she was elected to the Senate, her opponent was a Democrat, because that was post jungle primary. All she had to do was beat Loretta Sanchez. So yeah, but in terms of elections won in her own right against a Republican opponent, her resume is incredibly thin.
As to say non-existent?
I've got something for you guys.
Yeah, well, and it's when you're a California Democrat, you really don't have to be in. I know, I'm sorry about that. I don't know what the deal is, but when you're a California Democrat, competitive elections really aren't part of your life so much. Like Gavin Newsom is a guy, he's the only competitive election that guy has ever been in was his recall election, where his opponent was the word yes. But in terms of when you're a one-party state like California has been for the last 30 years, you don't really have to prove yourself electorally in the same sense that you do in other places, because in a one-party state, you were just anointed up the ladder from one station and you matriculate to the next, to the next, and the next. And so when you then find yourself on the national stage, that's an altogether different thing.
I'd like to pull up a quick little clip of our potential illustrious leader, Sasquatch, if you wouldn't mind.
Oh, you scare me with these sometimes. Let's see.
Oh, don't worry, bro. It's okay. This isn't the spicier part of Telegram. Don't worry. This is the controlled part of Telegram. I got you, bro.
We are going to the border. We've been to the border. So this whole thing about the border, we've been to the border. We've been to the border.
You haven't been to the border.
I haven't been to Europe. We are going to the border.
Fuck you, Lester.
Right.
It's your illustrious leader, y'all. That's your. You know what? It shocked me too, because I saw that clip and I'm literally sitting there talking to these people because they're asking me, "Why are you here? So, what do you think about Harris's policy? What do you think about who her running mate is, Tim Walz? What do you think about Harris? Do you think that that Walz is going to make a huge difference?" I was like, "Well, we'll see. I just want to cover it, because a lot of them heard you and I talking on the stream, Sasquatch, when I was sitting down, the first place that I was initially there. And I had to be careful not to let people know who I was actually voting for. So I had to go under the guise of actually being an RFK supporter, which wasn't really too hard because the last 2 elections I voted independent anyways. So it really didn't bother me too much to come from that standpoint, because I was being genuine when I was talking to the age group I told you about before the event started. That was
That's a slick move. That's well played.
Exactly, but that's the thing though. It was a bit of a mild deception because I don't necessarily want to vote for him. However, I would most definitely vote for RFK over Kamala Harris. And when they were pressing me about it and trying to figure out where I was politically, I said, I really was pulling for RFK to be a strong third candidate in this race, but it turns out the Democrats really don't want to see that for the American people. And of course, the answer that I got from the 22 and 23-year-old to my right, who are both part of the ABC Rainbow Squad, said, well, I guess Democrats just don't like him. And that was it. That was it.
Yeah, and it always devolves to emotion, doesn't it? It's all about it's about liking or not liking. It's about feeling the feelings you want to feel. And I don't know even whether sometimes they realize how often they couch all of their political philosophy in the language of emotion and how ridiculous it sounds. Well, of course they don't realize it, because if they did, they wouldn't do it. But God, it sounds stupid.
Doesn't it though? I'll be right back.
And that's even what we get from the professional journalismers more often than not now too.
Right. So, all right, I've got this bit about
even on the Sunday news shows that are supposed to be so very highbrow. It's always, well, how does this make you feel? How does that make you feel? Yeah, do your Tulsi.
All right, we're getting there. Skadoosh, no skadoosh, right there. All right. So apparently, Liberty Doll's going to run us through it.
Whistleblowers have come forward and report that a former member of Congress and presidential candidate Tulsi Gabbard is on TSA's surveillance list of suspected terrorists.
Dun, 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 dun. I love this woman. She's
the gray streak that did it.
Welcome to the channel. This week, we heard from several federal air marshal whistleblowers with information that former rep and presidential candidate Tulsi Gabbard is currently enrolled in the Quiet Skies program, a TSA surveillance program with its own terrorist watch list. It is a program that allegedly is designed to protect traveling Americans from domestic terrorists, but has also been weaponized against January 6th defendants and their families, including an infant, because his father attended the infamous rally.
Goddamn insurrectionist baby!
An air marshal's wife and a 20-year veteran.
So that's one thing I want to kind of speak on right quick. So you expect me to believe that an insurrection that you say took place in America did not involve but one gun that was used against the insurrection? That was the only gun involved?
Clearly was the only one.
Yes. And it should also be pointed out at the same time that we've been conditioned to believe for quite some time now that police shooting unarmed protesters from concealed positions with no prior warning is something that we are supposed to revile and be horrified by. But unless it's Ashley Babbitt, then it's totally cool. Then give the guy a fucking medal.
But keep in mind.
No moral double standards here at all, baby.
We literally had about 30 to 40% of Americans on that fateful day last month in Butler, PA, lament the fact that the shooter was only a hair's width off from the bullet being fired. We literally had people last night, in fact, Sasquatch, in fact, you saw the stream I was on early morning, literally had people not only in chat, but on the stream saying, well, guess what? The police or whatever they did their job by shooting those thugs, that they were thugs. Just because that protest got a little bit of rowdy on J6, all of a sudden they were thugs. We literally have a whole portion of our population that is okay with your deletion if you do not follow the party line. Literally, if you commit a thought crime, that thought crime should be punishable by death. A whole portion of the population believes this.
And if you fatally shoot, if you fatally shoot a person we don't like, we will give you a medal and a promotion.
We currently have half of the country that seems to be running on only one policy that I can find. A whole bunch of BS that is unconstitutional, can't possibly happen. But the one thing they want to stand on is we will take their assault rifles. But I have yet to hear a definition of an assault rifle that doesn't include other things.
And you're never going to hear one.
That's not a thing. I have run it through my head a bajillion times. I got a buddy of mine named Mandatory Carey who is attempting to rewrite the Second Amendment in a way that makes it completely incontrovertible while still eliminating certain weapons of war from civil possession. He's been working on it for 5 years, and he's not a moron. Yeah, he is weird, but he's not a moron. And so if he can't come up with it, as dedicated as I know that man is, I don't think it's out there.
So your friend doesn't believe in
it's a difficult
your friend doesn't
task.
believe in civilians at all owning or operating automatic weapons?
He was trying to utilize the mechanism as the definition for an assault weapon, right? So the thing is you have some that are blowback operated, some that are gas operated, some that are cyclical, and any one of them can be rendered as a semi-automatic by the introduction of a different autoseer. So there's no difference. You're trying to take grandpa's 243 is what it is. That's what.
Listen, I believe every American should have the right to own an M134 for home defense. Okay, provided they can afford it.
Right. All right. Well, anyway, Tulsi's on a watch list. So is an infant.
Just for being in DC, not even the protest, just the city on January 6th. And like most government lists, it's very difficult to get off of. The news first broke as an exclusive.
And if Tulsi and the infant teamed up and started their own terrorist cell.
As proof. The info first went to Sonia Labasco, the executive director of the Air Marshal National Council, a national advocacy group, a group whose director and president have been vocal about the government classifying innocent Americans as terrorists and adding them to these lists, all willy-nilly, as the government does. They've written countless letters to the Committee on Homeland Security and Government Affairs, the House Homeland Committee, the Committee on the Weaponization of the Federal Government, and the House Oversight Committee, voicing their concerns and even trying to get the program shut down, obviously with no luck. According to Bosco, every flight Gabbard boards also carries 2 explosive detection K9 teams.
Bro, that's pretty harsh, man. To be fair, RFK sounds like a human bug zapper orgasming into a box fan, but at least he asks if the box fan is over 18 before he snips his hair. Joe Brandon can't Botox smile out of that one. That's harsh, bro.
God, that's so mean. It sounds almost like something I would write.
Specialists for explosives, 1 plainclothes TSA supervisor, and 3 federal air marshals, all without her knowledge, and a lot of tax dollars. She says that she has tried to contact Gabbard about this, but so far hasn't had any luck. I'm sure by now that it is starting to get into the news cycle, she has figured it out. Now, before I get into the rest of the details and the proof, at least from the outside, that this is politically motivated, I want to tell you about today's sponsor. They might not be able to get you off a terrorist watch list because no one can, but they are the folks that you want in your corner if you ever find yourself in a self-defense incident. The Attorneys on Retainer program from the Attorneys for Freedom wants to make sure that you are covered for legal defense if a self-defense incident happens.
I'm pretty
They
sure
are
this was
actual
a paid
lawyers
ad.
whose job
Do it on your
for
own
misdemeanors, a gun-free zone, and that you read
We don't
every
have time
doll
for
to
that.
get 50.
We're trying to tell the news.
Feds. She endorsed Bernie Sanders in 2016. She endorsed Joe Biden in 2020. She is liked by many independents and libertarians, and even some conservatives, and has fabulous hair, by the way, though historically her positions on universal health care and gun control left a lot to be desired. She has changed her mind on some of those gun control issues and made headlines when she left the Democratic Party in recent years, instead calling herself an independent. She said that the Democrats had become a party of anti-white wokeness that was pitching the country towards a nuclear war. She has been critical of the US's endless wars, interventionism, and has been leaning more conservative in her stances since leaving the party. She even endorsed some Republicans during the 2022 midterm elections, including J.D. Vance and Carrie Lake, has appeared on Fox News and even spoke at CPAC in 2022 and 2024. She has been critical of the government's treatment of January 6th attendees and went so far as to call Adam Schiff himself a domestic terrorist. Can't say that I disagree with her. There were even rumors of her being on Trump's list for VP running mates, though obviously she did not make that final cut. Either way, she's been making some waves. So basically, the Biden administration / deep state, though at this point they are one and the same, probably see her as a dangerous turncoat. But I wouldn't think that those positions are necessarily enough to stick her on a watch list. But then again, Hillary Clinton called her a Russian asset back in 2020, and we all know what happens when you get on the wrong side of Hillary Clinton. And I mean...
All right. So what do we think about like this Tulsi Gabbard situation? First of all, Dommy Mommy, I'm down.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
Second of all, 10 toes down, right here for it.
Oh, yeah, that's definitely smash.
How?
Well, first point is just I want to talk for a moment about ideological conformity. There used to be a fairly wide continuum of thought across both of the major parties, which there still is to some extent in the Republican Party. You know, you've got squishy liberal Republicans and hardcore rock red conservative right-wing Republicans. On the Democrat side, you have got none of that. You have got strictly enforced, rigid ideological conformity. There's no such thing as a blue dog conservative Democrat anymore. There's just you hew to the program or you are voted off the fucking island. Take your pick. And when you have an imbalance like that, it makes weird things happen with the Overton window. And I think we've all seen the evidence of that very amply in the last, 6 or 7 or 8 or 10 years.
Yeah.
Did you give me the whole screen because you were expecting a big monologue? I wasn't expecting to do a big monologue. But go ahead.
I actually need to do something backstage right quick, and that was a convenient spot to take you.
One thing I want to bring up is I think that this really goes to show you that if you don't toe the party line properly, as far as the left is concerned, as far as Democrats are concerned, they will find a way to come after you. I'm pretty sure that if she had stayed a Democrat, even with her harsh rhetoric towards the Democrat Party, she probably wouldn't be catching the same kind of smoke that she is now. Usually when it comes to Democrats, they're way more vindictive than Republicans are to their quote-unquote traitors. I mean, the Republican Party is full of rhinos, and you don't see anything near as bad as what they're doing now. The fact that she was just in the city, probably on the other side of the city, and wasn't even aware of what was happening until it was already happening, should tell you, if you choose to be a traitor, we will come after you. And the fact that she went from Democrat to independent, for her, she may as well have gone full on Republican. She might as well call herself the most right-wing righty Trump supporter at this point.
Yeah, and I think we're all old enough here to remember when there were a lot of pro-life Democrats. Today there are zero. Just to name one issue where there used to be a continuum, and now there is only conformity.
It's pretty sad that that the Democrat Party has literally become the party from 1984. Who'd have thunk it, huh? Who'd have thunk it? Go ahead, Sasquatch. I know you want to show us something.
It's just some memes from my buddy Acorn Stash.
Mm-hmm.
He has a great eye for these. They're excellent. Typically, they're top notch. They're not quite Discord memes because but you get what I'm saying. He also has an amazing voice for anybody who's interested in that.
The Trump picture did wind up being it's got a really good, it might be accidental, but it's got a really outstanding photographic composition.
This composition looks so fake to me that I don't even really want to talk about it real hard, because the chances of catching that man next to an upside down American flag while he's being shot.
Yeah, I know, but I know what you mean. It's so serendipitous. You almost have to be suspicious of it.
Yeah, but you know what, man? The entire situation is serendipitous. The entire situation is active God-esque. All of it is. It's 1 in a million. Everything about it is one. There you go, Sasquatch. There you go. There you go, bro.
Like,
and of course, while you're at it, what was that, Sasquatch? I didn't mean to cut you off.
It's hardcore, bro. That picture does more to unfound my certainty of what happened that day than anything else. That and the picture of the bullet. Those two things.
What? Yeah.
Bother me.
Yeah. You know what though? Okay. Listen, since I don't have a tinfoil hat though, I'm gonna keep it off and I'm gonna try and be as logical and as surface level about this as possible. I mean, just think about it for a second though. Tons of cameras, all of them have high flash rates, high frame rates. They're going to be taking multiple pictures. And honestly, shout out to the journalists. Shout out to all of them, because I know that they aren't battlefield reporters. But for shots to be going off and for them to not really be ducking, I mean, sure, they're naturally flinching. But if you watch the video, a lot of them are staying focused on the stage, still getting video, still getting shots, no pun intended.
You could try 1 million times to get that photograph, even if you knew it was coming, and you would never get it. I mean, that's how serendipitous it was.
But keep in mind, they're going to be focusing on the stage, and they're going to be going, I can't say this without sounding punny. They're going to be going rapid fire with all their shots with those cameras. They're going to be trying to catching as many of those photographs as they can in a situation like that. And not 1, but 2 perfect pictures came out of it, dude. Not 1, but 2. Honestly, dude.
Yeah, I actually had somebody in a comment thread tried to start an argument with me about that. He says, "Oh, okay, so some news photographer just happens to have a high-speed camera right in the front row, and he happens to press the shutter at exactly the right time." And I said, "Dude, what the hell are you talking about? If it was a high-speed camera, we would have a picture of a bullet and not a streak that's this long. And also, if it's a high-speed camera, you still couldn't click the shutter, even if you knew it was coming and get it that perfectly. It just couldn't, sometimes improbable things happen and you just have to accept it."
And plus, we're talking about Trump here, so everything with him is serendipitous, it's improbable. Everything about him has a reality TV feel to it. His entire life has had a whole reality TV. Oh yeah, listen, we all love Alessandro Mountain Dew. I forget, it's Alessandro Mountain Dew.
Camacho.
Was it Camacho? Thank you.
Camacho,
5-time Ultimate SmackDown champion. Everyone loves him. That's the best president of the United States we could ever pick.
We have never needed President Camacho to come save us more than we do at this moment.
Oh my God! If only, bro.
Leaning into the Vermin Supreme category. I want him to come take my guns and give me better guns and change the bullets from shooting bullets to shooting cooked marshmallows.
Will he say?
I want a gun that dispenses Mountain Dew.
Will he agree? Will he agree with me when I ask that? Well, when I tell him that I believe every American has the right to an M134 for home defense.
I'm pushing for the home defense nuke myself.
Oh man.
I won't fall out.
Dwayne, there it is.
Tactical home defense nuke.
Andy Pickle got it. Dwayne, Elizondo, Mountain Dew, Herbert Camacho. Damn, that's an epic name.
Camacho, yeah.
Yep, there it is.
Brondo, it's what plants need. It's the thirst mutilator.
It's the electrolytes. It's got electrolytes.
It's got electrolytes. What are electrolytes? It's Brondo. It's what plants need. Oh man!
I gotta watch that picture again. It's been too long.
I was just thinking the same thing. All right. Hey, Jay, how I'm sorry, I'm still being flashbacks.
You're good, bro. Get out your system. Get out your system. How much what?
Have you watched any of the House of the Dragon?
I've only watched the first season. I haven't started the second season yet. I'm waiting for it to finish out, and then I'm going to binge it in one shot.
Right.
If you're asking me, it did.
Get your ass in gear.
Cool. All right, cool. In that case, I can just binge it through.
We'll wait till next week to do our breakdown, unless you've got one prepared.
Oh, Righteous Muffin. I'm sorry that you feel that way. Bro.
No, we can wait till next week. I mean, I
if
might
you're
do
gonna-
my own dedicated season review, but it won't interfere with our business.
Yeah, if you're bringing up something about how they woke it up, I mean, I get it. I mean, my girl and I were watching some of the new Batman movie, the new Batman series that came out on
enjoyed this
Amazon Prime.
season, bro. Like, it's actually been a pretty good season, although there was some
I don't doubt it.
took place.
I mean, as far as woken up,
woke, it's woke done properly, because
Right.
you don't have to have a terrible story and horrible casting. That's just what
Mhm.
they do to it.
I mean, if you want to talk about woken up
Yeah,
shows,
this show was a rare case where they actually did a character race swap, and it was a thoughtful character race swap. It was a race swap
wanna look at-
that served the story in an interesting way, and that's the kind of
wanna
race
look at
swap
woken
you
up
can do that
shows,
people don't mind.
you need not look any further than the new Batman that came out. They literally woke it up as much as possible. Commissioner Gordon and his wife are Indian, and his daughter's Indian as well. They gender swapped Penguin into a woman.
Oh, Christ,
into
are
a
you
woman.
fucking serious?
And then they even took Selena Kyle, and she wears a purple suit that is a full-on sultry dress, not at all the black suit that she typically wears and has worn since the inception of her character.
Right. I mean, what's up, broken system, broken trust? Good to see you, bud. I want a good story. That's what I'm getting at with the House of the Dragon. Even though I find the plot extremely confusing, I've watched the whole thing once, but it was a binge run, and I kind of got disjointed on who is who, and realized my mistake too late to rectify it. Didn't want to go back and watch like 4 episodes to get it back straight in my head. So I'm going to go through and watch it again this week and try to get the plot actually solid in my brain, because I'm absolutely positive somebody swapped dragons at one point.
I don't know if they swapped dragons or not. I mean, I have to rewatch the first season again. Let's see whether or not they actually. And when you say swap dragons, do you mean like the characters actually swap dragons? Is that what you're referring to?
I don't know if there was a recast and
Nobody swapped any dragons. You're just getting confused, is all.
Okay, I'll buy that. That's what I'm saying. It's like at one point in time, I was literally standing in the middle of my living room with my hands pointed at the TV, going, "Why is he on that dragon? Why is that dragon letting him ride him? What in the world is going on? That guy doesn't have a dragon. Why does he?" Because I had his name wrong in my head, I guess. I don't know.
Are you talking about Damon?
The thing I appreciate about House of the Dragon is that it has redeemed the franchise and done a lot to wash out the bad taste of the last couple god awful seasons of Game of Thrones. And it also it's refreshing, I think, in an age when most shows, are complete dog shit, and we only watch them to see how fucking woke and insufferable they are so we can make fun of them on YouTube. It's nice to have a show that's actually good, that everybody likes, that everybody looks forward to watching each week. And it's something you don't get all that much anymore, and I like that about this show. And the second season, I think you have to categorize it as a disappointment on a few different levels, but that doesn't mean the show is no longer good. It's still a good show. I think it's the best show that's currently going, and I hope the next season I hope they don't dilly-dally around so much in the next season, because there was a lot of dilly-dallying in season 2. I didn't think we were going to get all the way through season 2 with only one major dragon battle, but that's what happened. And now you got to wait often 2 years in between seasons of these things anymore. So I guess we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I'm not hating it. I'm just saying, at some point in time in my brain, I got 2 characters mixed up, and it ruined everything because I couldn't figure out what was actually happening. Because I thought I knew what was going on, and then I realized I didn't, and it just left me staring at the last 4 episodes, going,
"Well, yeah." And it can really throw one for a loop if you're trying to take it all in 1 or 2 sittings. Because the first season, there's about 20 years of calendar time that goes by in the first season, so much so that they have to recast all the main characters halfway through the thing. And then in the second season, you wind up going drastically in the opposite direction, because there's only about 4 or 5 weeks that go by in the second season. And I was kind of blown away by that we got all the way to episode 8 and so little had happened. But I'm willing to overlook that if season 3 is awesome.
"You want a piece of this one up on the screen? It says marriage promotes white supremacy, according to white university professor. Marriage fundamentalism, like
You bet your
structural
sweet white ass I do.
is a key structuring element of white heteropatriarchal supremacy. How's that for a mouthful?
White
Heteropatriarchal. God, what a word.
That is
heteropatriarchal supremacy. Wow, that's a $5 word right there, guys.
That's just
That's a
longhand.
fantastic word.
That's cis. That's all that is. CIS.
We could actually extend that one a little bit. How about heteropatriarcho normative? Boom.
Oh man,
you stop giving them ideas. Bro.
Yeah, right though. Seriously.
Oh, I know. They'll take me up on it, won't they?
That'll
They
be
just
in
might.
the headline tomorrow. There's some asshole in the New York Times who watches the show but doesn't comment. He's like, yeah.
Oh man, sweet Lord have mercy. Sweet Lord have mercy.
You've got agents everywhere.
Right?
All right. So, are there any other topics you guys wanted to bring up? The only other thing I can really bring up would be the situation that we could talk about would be with Ismail Haniyeh, the fact that he was assassinated in Tehran and the Iranians haven't responded yet. There was a report that came out that TASS news agency reported rather that the Iranians had to communicate to the Kremlin telling.
Hold on, you got an article to read or some notes you want to do?
Give me 1 second. I could pull up that, or I could pull up what I've been bringing up for the. I could pull up an article that I've been talking about actually. Let's see, in regards to the counteroffensive into Kursk. I think there's a lag. What are you saying?
Do
I
that.
can't hear you.
Do the thing. Go ahead.
Give me 1 second so I can pull that sucker up. I believe I left it in Telegram. Give me 1 second. I tend to leave a lot of my articles in Telegram or in Facebook. Let me see. Oh, that's Rumble, actually. That's the wrong thing. Give me 1 second, guys. I think I left it in Facebook. I need to pull it up.
I like that. That's pretty funny. He says, marriage license $50,000, but a divorce for free.
Put a divorce for free?
Yeah.
Oh my God, bro. That is rough. That is freaking rough, man. Anyways. All right. So here we go. We're going to pull this up. This is from Reuters. Give me 1 second. Okay. So we're going to start off, guys. A lot of you might not know. I covered this over the course of the past 2 days. There was a major Ukrainian incursion into the Kursk region that I mentioned about before. I mentioned earlier, which has ended up being a major escalation in the war. I'm going to pull up an article from Reuters. They're actually one of my favorite news sources, even though they are pretty left-leaning. They're still a British news source. They have a really good interface. If my computer decides to cooperate, let me close out some of these tabs. That might help the process out just a sec. All right, there we go. So here they have Russia fighting intense battles against major Ukrainian incursion. This was updated yesterday at 2:28 p.m. Now, guys, in case you don't know already, I went through the map on my channel. Actually, I think you were there for that, Sasquatch. Over the course of the past 2 hours, we went through every major offensive that's taken place from both the Russians and the Ukrainians throughout the duration of the war in 2024. This is actually one of the bigger incursions because this is the first time that the UAF, the Ukraine Armed Forces, has actually taken official offensive actions into Russia. So last year, you had a paramilitary organization or a partisan organization called the Freedom of Russia Legion. They were disaffected Russians who were a militia who went to go fight for Ukraine that actually had an offensive into Belgorod. Belgorod is a city that's just outside of Kharkiv. As a result of that, back in May 10th of this year, the day after Russian Victory Day, the Russian armed forces launched an assault of 50,000 troops into the Kharkiv region. Now, what's happened here in response to the New York offensive, at least in my belief, the New York offensive down in the Donbass region, the Ukrainians have launched an offensive of 1,000 troops in the Kursk direction, which is near Sumy. you're going to end up seeing something like this. You're going to end up seeing basically a similar response when this offensive fails. The last time the offensive failed into the Belgorod region from the Freedom of Russia Legion, you saw the Kharkiv offensive. When this offensive fails, you'll likely end up seeing a Sumy offensive. We're going to dig into this article real quick for you guys. It's not very long. Russia fighting intense battles against major Ukrainian incursion. The article reads, Moscow 10th Reuters. Russia was fighting intense battles on Saturday against thousands of Ukrainian troops as deep as 20 kilometers or 12 miles inside the Kursk region after Ukraine's biggest attack on Russian sovereign territory since the start of the war in 2022. Ukrainian forces rammed through Russian border early on Tuesday and swept across some western parts of Russia, Kursk region. A surprise attack that may be aimed at gaining leverage in possible ceasefire talks after the U.S. election. Supported by swarms of drones and heavy artillery fire, Ukrainian units moved quickly to carve out a sliver of the western territory beside the border, while sabotage units pierced deeper inside Russia, according to Russian war bloggers. Quote, the armed forces continue to repel the attempted invasion by the Ukrainian armed forces. Russia's defense ministry said on Saturday, adding the intense battles were focused around the Malolonkia, Olgovka, and Ivonivskoye settlements around 10 to 20 kilometers inside Russia. In a sign of the gravity of the situation, Russia imposed a sweeping security regime in 3 border regions on Saturday, while Belarus said it had repelled what it thinks was a major drone attack from Ukraine. President Vladimir Putin cast the Ukrainian attack as a major provocation, and though Russia's top general, Valery Gerasimov, said on Wednesday that Ukraine's incursion had been halted, Russia has thus far failed to push the Ukrainian forces back over the border. Russian military bloggers said on Saturday the situation had stabilized after Russia rushed in forces to halt the surprise advance, though they said Ukraine was swiftly building up forces. The Ukrainian attack has prompted some in Moscow to question why Ukraine was able to pierce the Kursk region so easily after more than 2 years of the most intense land war in Europe since World War II. Quote, a full-scale military operation is underway against a very serious enemy who are certainly not idiots, said Yuri Polyevka, a popular Ukrainian-born pro-Russian military blogger. He said that Russian aviation had saved the day by pummeling scores of invading Ukrainian units, but also said the truth should be told about the gravity of the situation. So I'm going to pause right there because I'm about halfway through the article. We're at the home stretch of it now, and I want to bring up another screen so you guys can get a better visual about what's going on. Now, what I'm going to pull up is a source that anyone can pull up. It's available on Google. Anyone can get a hold of it. It's not hard to find. It's called Deep State UA Map. In fact, Sasquatch, you're familiar with it. I pulled it up the other night.
Yep.
I'm going to pull it up again so that way the people in the audience can see what it is I'm talking about. You can get a better understanding of what the region looks like and what has happened.
Because of how much time I spent looking into the Second World War, I'm fairly confident of my ability to take most of Europe through tank warfare.
In theory, you could, but tanks. I mean, this war is showing you that tanks are more vulnerable than they've ever been, especially with drone warfare, especially with the advent of drone warfare becoming so much more prevalent. Now, granted, yes, drone warfare has
we do know also that there is no area of the world that lends itself more to massive tank battles than that one.
Than Russia does. In fact, Russia has the most artillery pieces on Earth. They actually outnumber U.S. artillery pieces almost 2-1.
That's the thing. They're both using them wrong. If they were using their tanks appropriately, they wouldn't be sitting ducks the way they are.
Okay, so if you look here in this region, okay, the Sudzia region, this is the Kursk salient right here. If you look up this way, this is the capital, or this is actually the capital of the Oblast. This is the Kursk Oblast. Think of it Oblast as like a state. Okay. Now this is as of the 11th today, the 11th, August 2024. Now we're going to go back.
This is the Oblast radius, you know.
Correct. Yes, it is. So once you go back to the 7th, the 7th was Tuesday. There was nothing here. In fact, when you move forward, you can see that's the extent that they've gotten so far. Now, when I come here and I pull up the map and I actually draw through, this is where Ukrainian forces actually pulled through. Here, 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 here. Now, what they haven't done yet is push through here. This area is largely, it's largely been untouched. So since then, what other Miller bloggers that I've noticed, what have they done? Or what other told me is that the Russians actually stopped them along this area here. This seems to be the area where there's most of the Russian counteroffensives. Now they actually started doing counteroffensive into Severodivko, and here near the Makonivka region. But for the most part, these areas are pretty stabilized. The chances of them being able to push through and break through. I'm really bad at saying these words. Kashaya Loknaya.
No, you're doing great.
Where I heard last. Yeah, I'm doing my best here, man. I'm telling you. When these Miller bloggers say these words, they kind of just flow with it. So they probably recite this shit. But the last I heard that in this area, that's where the heaviest clashes were in between the Russians and Ukrainians. If they're not able to break through and get through this major salient and this highway, chances are you're going to see them get pushed all the way back across the border. And if that ends up happening, don't be surprised if you see the Sumy region, which is over here. This is Sumy. Okay, this is the entire Sumy area oblast. Okay, if they end up failing here at this attack, okay, you're going to end up seeing the Sumy. Mistaken. This is the Sumy Oblast. If they fail in this offensive here, you're going to see the Russians likely do what they did over here in Kharkiv. The Kharkiv region, okay, this is the Kharkiv Oblast. That's the city. That's how far the green is how far the Russians got at the initial part of the invasion. Okay. Now, like I mentioned, May 10th, this is when the offensive started in Kharkiv. And that was in response to partisan attacks by Freedom of Russia Legion into the Belgorod Oblast. So what you're going to end up seeing is pretty much a repeat. Because of this incursion in the Sudza, you'll likely end up seeing Russians repel them from here and then end up turning around and sweeping through this road and this salient here. They'll probably attack here from the north, if I had to guess, and here probably from the east. I know that those are really bad arrows, so apologies. I'm not really used to drawing on a computer screen. But that's really your update. That's the biggest thing that's been going on in the war right now. I could go over the rest of the map.
No, you're fine. This is excellent tactical analysis.
I love it.
But I could go over more of the map, but there are a lot of different salients. If you don't really follow the war, then me talking about the other offensives that are going on right now isn't really going to help you any. Mostly because a lot of the offensives are mini offensives. In fact, Russia has instead opted for instead of taking the old World War II aero offensive route, and something similar to what the Ukrainians did in October of 22 in the Kharkiv and Kherson offensives, which were two big blows, actually. A lot of people, myself included, thought that the war may turn around at that point, that you actually might see the Ukrainians win. The Russians have instead opted for death by 1,000 cuts. So rather than have one or two giant offensives like you've seen the Ukrainians do in October of 22, in June of 23, and now, of course, in August of 24, the Russians have done death by 1,000 cuts. So imagine you have 10 to 15 different areas, 10 to 15 different sectors, all of which have mini offensives going on at the same time. And they're all gaining ground. Not a lot. 1 kilometer, 2 kilometer, 3 kilometers here each day. But you figure if you have 15 different offensive areas, each of them taking 1 to 3 kilometers each day, well, after a month, that really tends to add up, don't you think?
It does.
It does.
One issue I have with this entire methodology I see it use here, I don't see any benefit to Ukraine extending the area they have to defend. There is absolutely no bonus, no trading cards, no chips, no pogs, no points going to anybody who takes ground from Russia in this theater. Without the plan to go to Moscow, you're just peeing up a rope.
So my theory is this. My theory is that the reason why they attacked into the Kursk Oblast, because it's the adjacent oblast to Belgorod. Belgorod is where you see the offensive going into Kharkiv, or in Kharkiv city. So the theory, I think, is they pushed through into that area to try and alleviate the pressure in Kharkiv, and therefore cause the troops that are right now in the New York area. By the way, they do have a town called New York. That's where the major offensive for the Russians is taking place right now. That and the Avdiivka region and the Avdiivka front. They want to alleviate troops from those fronts to have them backfill going into Kharkiv, have the troops going from Kharkiv to go into Kursk to backfill those areas to try and push those troops back. Because the truth be told, there's video of this. The Ukrainians actually have done a pretty decent job. They've pushed about 20 kilometers in. And they've actually taken a few hundred troops prisoner. It's kind of impressive. But if they were going to do something like this, if they were going to do an offensive like this, they needed to do that back in summer of 23, in June of 23. So what they needed to do, instead of attacking the Zaporizhia Oblast, and that was with a big counteroffensive. I don't know how much you guys know. It was a big counteroffensive. There were a bunch of pictures of destroyed tanks and infantry fighting vehicles. You probably saw the videos, or probably saw the New York Times post, or the New York Times post, not the New York Times post. What's the other one? Actually, I think it was the New York Times. They had put out an article about that where there. No. It was a New York it was a New York newspaper. I think it was New York Times. I think I might have been right about that. They had put out a news article about a shitload of Ukrainian vehicles that were destroyed, that were donated from the United States and the UK and France and Germany. And there was a giant picture of all of them clustered up and all destroyed. That was that offensive that occurred last year. All those resources and all those men that they wasted in that offensive should have been used for this offensive. Because if the front was that porous going into the Russian border, and they were able to pour 40,000 troops along with several hundred vehicles into that kind of front, they could have actually taken Kursk then. Now you have a real bargaining chip. Now you can go to the negotiation table and say, hey, listen, we're actually on the doorstep. Now, not on the doorstep of Moscow. The Russians will never let them get that far. But the fact that they could take a city, a well-renowned city, that they were able to repel Nazi Germany from back in World War II, and say, hey, listen, we took this city back. The city is symbolic to you. You want it back? We'll go 1 for 1. That's what you could have brought to the trading table. That's what you could have brought as a bargaining chip to the negotiating table.
I hear what you're saying, but there is,
and I think we would be remiss in not mentioning also that I'm sorry. Go ahead, Squatch.
There is no win in taking Russian territory without taking something worth either a ceasefire or something along those lines. Unless you can stop the war from happening, any advance is just temporary and just on the heels of our money. That's it. Mm-hmm. That's all it is making a show to try to say, hey,
what we're seeing right now, and the thing I think we would be remiss in not mentioning is that here we have a post-Soviet border dispute in which all of the strategic decisions are being taken according to what happens in a presidential election in the United States. And that is the reality of how the geostrategic political balance of power works when you are the world's only superpower.
For now, but that might change. I think after Trump, we might end up seeing the parity that the adversaries want to have.
Oh, wow.
We are slowly losing our grip on our hegemon status.
We got a almost 3-minute outro that we're going to do tonight. Captain Curmudgeon has produced another lovely video for us, which I think everybody will enjoy because it's so funny to me when he does this stuff. So that we don't go over time, Jay, let's start with you.
All right, guys. Thank you so much for everyone having me here. As always, I big. Oh, hold on, let me fix that. Big shout out to Caucasian Sasquatch and Captain Curmudgeon for allowing me to be on their platform on another successful Sunday night. As always, I really appreciate being here, guys. If you enjoy this content, if you enjoy my analysis, you want to see me do more in-depth analysis, where I get to rehearse and practice the names of the cities that I don't know how to really say, then come on over to Jay's Hot Topics. That's Jay's Hot Topics on the YouTube channel, Jay's Hot Topics on the Rumble, and Jay's Hot Topics on the Twitter. I cover all kinds of stuff like this, and I've been covering more combat footage, actually. So if you guys like to see some more spicier content, that won't be on YouTube, but definitely come over on the Twitter or the Rumble. I'm going to be doing more coverage of geopolitics, especially Ukraine war, possibly a war with Iran, most definitely any conflicts that we have with China. I'm also going to be covering, of course, more election coverage, more campaign coverage, whether that be Trump, Harris, or RFK. If he ever decides to hold a rally, I would actually love to cover RFK's rallies if you ever get the chance to see those. And of course, I'll be covering more about finance. We're going to have ourselves a CPI report. We're also going to have the jobs report come out tomorrow. Keep in mind, guys, you should be paying attention to that because it does affect your pockets. Once again, I appreciate to both the gentlemen that I got a chance to work with tonight, and I'll pass it back on to Curmudgeon.
I'm Cap. He's Squatch. He's Jay. Play the song.
All right, bud. We'll do that thing. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you the song.
Uptown got its hustlers. St. Paul got its bums. 15th Street's got Big Tim Walls, and he's a game-shooting son of a gun. Yeah, he's big and dumb as that Biden bum. What was the drink? Who gives a toss? And when the bad folks go to the state house, you know they call Tampon Timmy boss just because. And they say you don't steal a cat lady's faith. You don't misgender any him. You don't go and castrate a fucking perfect stranger, and you don't mess with Tampon Tim. Well, out of South Mankato came a big old boy. He said, I'm looking for Tampon Tim. I am a cross-dressing boy. My name is Billy St. Croix, but all my girlfriends call me Kim. Yeah, I'm looking for the king of 15th Street. He drives a rainbow-colored Prius. We just embezzled some money, and it won't be funny when the IRS comes to see us. And everybody say, Jack, you don't steal a cat lady's bait. You don't misgender any him. You don't go and castrate a fucking perfect stranger, and you don't mess with Tampon Tim. Well, a hush fell over the state house. Timmy come bopping in off the street. And when the riots were done, the only place that wasn't burning was Governor's Mansion Street. Yeah, we chanced a couple hundred youngsters, gave a focus to a couple dozen more. And you better believe he tells the same kind of story as Babylon's fucking hall. And they say you don't steal a cat lady's vape. You don't misgender any him. You don't go and castrate a fucking perfect stranger, and you don't mess with Tampon Tim. Big Tim got his hat, and his voters got 18 cats. And it ain't no damn stolen valor if you say you're an 010 when you're just an E2. And they say you don't steal a cat lady's vape. You don't misgender any him. You don't go and castrate a fucking perfect stranger, and you don't mess with Tampon Tim.
That's absolutely beautiful. So, y'all come back now. You hear?